My name is Kieryn, and I did Freedom Session with our church over this past school year. When I started Freedom Session, I was about halfway through my third year of nursing school. I definitely was a bit hesitant to commit to it. I wondered if I would have enough time or if it would really make a difference in my life. I didn't really know if I needed Freedom Session because I didn't have any trauma in my life or any big hurts in my life, but I knew that I still felt called to it, and so I committed. I wasn't really sure what God wanted to do through it or what He was going to heal in my life, but I knew that He was asking me to do it. I knew that I wouldn't regret doing Freedom Session. I decided to be obedient to God's calling, and I knew that He would use it in some way, whether it resulted in big changes or just small ones. My mom, who is the director of Freedom Session, asked me to be a facilitator of a group, and I knew that when I accepted, I would have no choice but to stick with it and follow through, which actually was a huge blessing in the end. Upon starting Freedom Session, I knew that God wanted to deal with some unhealthy behaviors in my life. In the first half of the program, it became very clear that God also wanted to heal and restore some of the relationships between me and my family. I was holding on to a lot of bitterness and anger towards them for things that they had done to hurt me or ways that I had hurt them. I found that I had a tendency to withhold love and withhold relationship from people as a way to protect myself. I also began to see how much regret I felt over ways that I had hurt other people, about not loving people well in some of the relationships in my life. I felt a lot of disappointment in myself because of that. I noticed that I was still mad at myself for not treating these people with the care that they deserve. I was holding on to a lot of past actions, behaviors, and memories, and I just couldn't let them go. And I was choosing to stay in those negative emotions rather than allowing God to heal my heart. Through the inventories and reflection times, I quickly noticed that in the last 2 years of my life, I had been a shell of who I once was, and I was not experiencing the fullness of life that Jesus promises. That bitterness that I felt towards others and towards myself just overwhelmed every other emotion. It kept me from experiencing joy and experiencing excitement for life. I was constantly operating out of a place of worry, and I just felt numb. I can see now the power that I was allowing the devil to have in my life, and I've come to understand that God let the devil have power over me in this bitterness because I was letting him have authority over me. Coming out of Freedom Session, I feel that there's a noticeable difference in how I walk through my life. I feel like I'm now experiencing life in the way that the Lord intended. I feel much more deeply, whether that is joy and peace or sadness and brokenness. I cry way more easily. One of the moments where I noticed this change was I was watching the kids' cartoon Bluey with my nephews about a family of dogs with Australian accents. And I started crying during a heartfelt moment between the dad and daughter in the show. In that moment, I was assured that the numbness that I felt that surrounded me, it was completely gone. The last 3 weeks of Freedom Session were the most impactful for me. I walked through the first 16 weeks not really feeling any different. I didn't really know if it had really changed my life all that much or if it had been very meaningful for me, but I'm so thankful that I was in a small group with 2 of my best friends, and I believe that without their accountability, I probably would not have finished. I say that not because it was necessarily difficult or overwhelming, but I just didn't think that I needed it. One of the other significant moments was in week 18, where we were encouraged to verbally make amends and apologize to people that we had hurt. And I finally felt those walls that I had put up between me and my family begin to crumble. In the past, rather than allowing God to heal my heart, I had withheld my love and didn't let people into my life to protect myself from being hurt. In physically admitting my mistakes, I felt God restore a sense of wholeness in me. Throughout the past couple years, I had often asked God to take away that bitterness and that anger in my heart, but Freedom Session allowed me to approach Him with an open hand and actually surrender those thoughts and behaviors and memories to Him. I realized that healing required me to do something, and I couldn't just expect God to do all the work. Over the past few months, I have witnessed the Lord offer me forgiveness, and I've come to realize that it's this forgiveness that allows me to also forgive myself for the things that I previously felt shame for. Freedom Session has taught me what it looks like to live as a new creation, as somebody who is in Christ and is therefore free from the condemnation of sin.